Today's topic is going to be about alcohol and the ocean, alcohol and the sea, alcohol and water, and why they're dangerous. So welcome again to this walk and talk, as I go out and talk about things related to sobriety, and this is quite normal for people who have taken on that challenge. If you've done that, good on you. And so let's walk and talk. So we start off the walk and talk. I have been 25 months sober, but in a way that means nothing. There goes by the train. You're going to hear a few of those as we're walking. So why does it mean nothing? Well, of course it means something, but what I mean by it means nothing is that it's no predictor of if you're going to drink today or not. You have to take it day by day. It doesn't matter if you're 1 day sober, 4 days sober, 5 days sober, a week or a month sober, or 3 months or 3 years. It doesn't matter. 10 years, it doesn't matter. You can still turn to drink that day. And the way drink works is that demon alcohol pops out when you least expect it, sometimes when you're at your peak or things are going really well for you. That's some of the most vulnerable times. Let's go back to talking about alcohol and the sea, or alcohol and water. And when I say the sea or the ocean, I'm also including deltas, I'm also including rivers, and as you'll see, I'm even including showers, bathtubs, and paddling pools. Insurance companies, they do a tally of all the things which people were making claims over, or companies were making claims over, or whoever had insurance policies with them. And they look at what's going on, what kind of accidents are occurring, what things are going on that are causing people to basically activate their insurance policy and make a claim. And the answer is very much similar for everyone around the entire world. The statistics don't change very much. Causes of accidents, causes of death are very similar the world over. And what happens is that alcohol, when added to this list, makes each one of them much more likely to happen. So when you mix alcohol with any of them, the probability of them happening goes up. For example, there are some videos online which demonstrate what happens when you go driving and have a drink, or have 2 drinks, or have 3 drinks, or more. And they're very interesting to see how driving skills go from good to utterly disgraceful, terrifying, dangerous. And people driving around and they don't even know that they've hit a cone, or that there's a cone under the car in these obstacle courses. So alcohol, yeah, it's a factor in increasing the probability of accidents happening. So, why alcohol and the ocean? Well, this video could just simply talk about the dangers of the sea. And it would have to be a training video for something specific that's going to go on for an hour. And that's just one element of something at sea. And then there's the hundreds of other things. So if you've ever grown up by the sea or a waterway, you're going to learn very early on that the sea is a dangerous place to be. Full stop. The sea is not a safe place to be. But it's a beautiful place, and we enjoy the water, and so we like to be there, and sometimes we have to use it for transportation, or it's an option for traveling, or even we have to walk near these areas. Now, there are two huge problems with the sea and human beings. And the first is that our airways for intake are actually a small area in the front of our head. There's two nostrils and a mouth. And if those are covered and sealed, then the clock starts, and unless you get air into your lungs and are able to breathe, you're going to have brain damage, and then the body will fail and die. So the reason why I mentioned paddling pools earlier is because old people and infants can fall face down in them, so you only need a few millimeters of water to seal up that area, and the clock starts in terms of how long you've got to survive. And it's really seconds to minutes before there's brain damage. And so you can drown in just a very small amount of water. So if you can drown in a small amount of water, then there's more water, then there's more amounts of it, more area, more places where you can drown. And alcohol on top of this just makes things even worse, because the second way that water is dangerous is that it lowers your body temperature. When the body temperature is lowered enough, hypothermia sets in. And when hypothermia sets in, the body starts to become unstable, especially with regards to the brain and disorientation, and you eventually go gaga and drown. So those are the main two ways. There are other ways in terms of exhausting the body by trying to swim upstream against the tide. Riptides that can pull people out, and they struggle against them. They waste all their energy, and then they can't keep themselves above the surface. So there's a whole plethora of water-related troubles, and all of it can be learned under something called water safety. So if you've never encountered water safety courses or tutorials, then I suggest you have a look at those. Here is something very interesting. Hopefully you've stuck around this far. Sadly enough, every so often on the news, you hear about somebody who went missing and they're looking to find them, and they've been gone for a long time, and they're just asking if anybody knows anything. When you hear about those cases, they fall into two basic categories. There are those who went missing after drinking, and those who didn't. And those who went missing after drinking were at a pub, at a nightclub, out with friends, and went drinking. And then they got separated from their friends, or on their way home, went missing. Often in these stories, they'll mention the last place this person was seen. Take that location, put it into your maps and have a look. And there's probably a 99% chance that there's going to be a waterway quite close to where they went missing. And what I mean by a waterway is something significant, like the ocean, the sea, a significant river. And so what's likely happened is that the person has gone into the water for whatever reason, chasing after a mobile phone that slipped down the bank, and or somebody was taking and they tried to get their phone, and they've been drinking, or they get brave and want to go down and have a look at the water a bit closer, and something happens and in they go. And when people go missing like that, and investigators learn about the waterway nearby, they're straight on to contacting the rescue divers. We need you to have a look at this place and see if the person is there. And the fact is that sometimes they recover the missing person, or sometimes they don't. And sometimes they don't. It can happen for a number of reasons. But one of them is that waterways are usually not static. You know, even large enough lakes have some movement going on. And so the person is swept along somewhere. And rivers, of course, end at the sea, at deltas. And that's it, the person is gone out to sea. And of course your rescue divers have to start looking in a different place. So often these missing persons cases are actually cases where the probability of them having drowned is significant, because alcohol was consumed around the same time that they went missing near the waterway. So you can't underestimate the impact of alcohol on people who are near waterways or the ocean. It increases the dangers tenfold. To get around this problem is to never allow the two to cross paths. That's the first thing. If you drink, all water related activities become a zero. Don't do them. You'll hear some people say, oh, you can have a drink and then you just have to wait a certain amount of time and then you're fine again. Just don't even do that. Avoid that. Or better yet, sobriety. And then this is never a factor at all. And that's one of the bonuses of sobriety, of which there are many. When you add alcohol to all these things that can cause accidents and fatalities, the insurance actuary is keeping notes about them and tracking them. When you add alcohol, the probability of these events go up. And when you remove alcohol, they stabilize again. So by default, sobriety means that you can't be in those categories of higher probability due to alcohol. Those are gone. So in terms of sobriety, your chances of not having a serious accident or complication on these lists are reduced. They're still there, but they're not as high as somebody who has drink taken. So that's a huge advantage. And now I'm going to talk a bit about how this has impacted my life. So even though water safety formed part of my early years, and I went on many water safety courses, and I enjoyed them all, I learned a lot, that still didn't prevent people from my local area drowning. In my early teens, somebody who was older than me, another teenager, out drinking with his friends, got into a small boat to go over to a larger boat that was moored in the harbour to continue drinking out in that boat. And getting from the smaller boat into the bigger boat, slipped and went into the water. And the tide carried him, and he was gone. And his friends couldn't save him. And his body was retrieved the next day by divers, rescue divers. And so, again, alcohol increased the likelihood of there being an accident. And I'm going to point out something with this as well. Going from one boat to another, a harbour master with a life of experience of getting from boat to boat and land to boat, I know and saw go into the water, going from a big boat to a smaller boat. I witnessed it myself. That's right, a harbour master. Granted, he was kind of in retirement by that stage, but still, you would think a harbour master wouldn't be going underwater. And this was a harbour master who never drank. Yeah, he was a pioneer, a sober harbour master who never drank in his life. That's quite an epic challenge there, to follow a bit of a Mount Everest to climb. He did it. And so I saw him go into water. So I'm going to turn around and go the opposite way. And what happens is the human body, you can almost bisect it down the middle, and you got your left leg and you got your right leg. And if your left leg is in one boat and your right leg's in another, The buoyancy between the two is different. It's rarely ever the same. And the body is having trouble keeping its balance because it's receiving two different signals about how stable the ground is. Creates disorientation, and you can push one boat out with your leg by accident, and down you go in between them into the water. And this is boat to boat, and then there's land to boat, and it's the same problem. One leg is going to be on stable ground, and the other leg is going to be going into something that's moving, and again, different signals get sent up to the brain, and it can be disorientating. So you kind of want to move to where you're going, not rapidly, but you don't want to be hanging around too long in that mid position. So adding alcohol to that situation just makes it all the worse. And another thing that can happen when you go down like that is striking your head against the side of the boat. And I believe it happened in the case of the young man who died, that he had hit his head. And that, of course, combined with alcohol and the ocean, your chances of surviving something like that are small. And that even goes for people who take water safety lessons. So yeah, the sea is a dangerous place to be. Cannot underestimate how dangerous it can be. Another drowning occurred with two men who had a yacht, and they were up in the local pub one evening and had some drinks between them, and they were getting into the yacht, and one of them, of course, went into the water. There could be a bit of a tide going out, taking the person, and the friend jumps in to try and help them. And of course they're both in the water and they both drowned. And this problem is quite common as well, is that people who try to save others can themselves end up drowning. Sometimes actually do save the person that they're trying to save, or some of them, but they themselves then can end up drowning because they've spent all their energy, they've tired themselves out during the rescue. So I'm not here to tell you how you are to deal with these situations. I'm here to say, take up some water safety training, read about it, watch videos about it. And included with that will be things like CPR. You'll learn how to deal with people who are choking. And that's just the ocean. Earlier on I spoke a little bit about how paddling pools are a danger for infants, young children, and the elderly. How if they fall face down into it, it can seal up the airways and they can drown. It's the same with the bathtub. It's the same with the hot tub. It's the same with the jacuzzi. Of course, we remember how Matthew Perry was found at the bottom of his jacuzzi, drug influenced, that he had coronary failure, heart attack, stroke, whatever it was. And if you're in the tub and you're unable to help yourself, then you're going to drown and you're going to be at the bottom of that pool. And I won't comment if he had drink taken or not, but I think you get the idea that if you have alcohol in you and there's an incident, yeah, being at the bottom of the hot tub or the jacuzzi is a possibility. The probability goes up. And that's why there are lifeguards at swimming pools, and why there are warning signs with jacuzzis and hot tubs. It's because they're dangerous. They're great and they're lovely to relax in, a lot of fun, but they're also dangerous. I know somebody I went to school with who passed away last year. Unfortunately, slipped in the shower And that's one that you know about already, which is having a shower mat so that you don't slip. Alcohol in showers do not mix. You see it in movies. Let's put him under the shower, wake him up. Well, having people there doing that to somebody, it can be helpful because they're there and less dangerous. But if you were to do it to yourself, I'm gonna get into the shower while you're legless, very dangerous. Don't do it. Or running yourself a bath and getting into the bath, again, can be very dangerous. Look at how Whitney Houston sadly passed away. Again, she's in the bathtub. She probably had some drugs in her system, and something happened and she goes under and she drowns in her own bathtub. And there are lots of celebrity deaths which are all avoidable, and often it's a combination of alcohol and the incident. So demon alcohol increases the likelihood or probability of an accident or a fatality happening. So every time you pick up a bottle and start to drink, you can imagine in the background all these probability numbers, percentages fluctuating, going up and up and up and up, and into this sort of red area, like the levels, sound levels on a recording device. You got the green area, which is the safe area, and then you got the yellow area, which is the sort of warning. You could be going into the red area if you keep going that direction. And then you've got the red area. And alcohol is that red area. And it doesn't matter how much you have of it. You're already out of the yellow and into the start of the red. And that just goes up with the more alcohol that you take. At this time of recording, the video of Justin Timberlake's alcohol-related stop, his DUI, driving under the influence, is available. And what's interesting about watching that one is he starts off not looking so bad. And as the duration of the stop, which has been recorded on body cam, goes on, he gets progressively worse. So what's happened is, it seems he's had a drink before he's gotten into the car, and the drink is just coming on as he's driving, and it's coming on even stronger when he's being stopped. And there's like 10 minutes between the actual stop and making him walk an imaginary line. So you could tell that the traffic cops have, or the cops have, they're trying to judge how much under the influence he actually is. And at the start they have worries because of the way he's driving. Maybe he would start sobering up if it was a long time before when he had something to drink, but that's not what's happening in the video. And you can see a lot of these videos actually online. There's more and more of these because of body cam footage where people are drunk and causing fatalities. And you see them inside the police station sitting down at a table. They're being shown pictures of the people that they've killed because the officer has attended the mortuary, and they're going to take those pictures and show them to the person who caused the accident. And they do that because a lot of drinkers, they just lie about how much they've drunk, what they were doing, what they were up to. They just don't tell the truth. And so the officers put these out and show the pictures, and the person begins to comprehend the actual impact that they've had, because they were drunk driving. So it's interesting that we've gone from alcohol and the ocean to alcohol and driving. But of course, it's very hard to not see that crossover because they're in the same bracket of things that can cause accidents and fatalities. The insurance actuary sees this all the time. At the top, you have things like car accidents, you have drownings, you have falls, you have prescription medication related incidents. These are up there at the top. And then there's age brackets as well, where you could see certain age groups have higher rates of these problems than other age groups. And some of that has to do with just the neurological development of the individual. And this is something quite new, which we're learning in science, is that the orbitofrontal cortex, this area of the brain, isn't really fully developed until you're between the ages of 25 and 30. And what this thing does is it regulates your ability to make better choices in everything, which includes risk taking. So during World War II, the Air Force favored younger pilots because they have less of a sense of how dangerous it is, the mission that they're going on and flying the plane. Many of them feel like they're invincible, indestructible, and that's the risk group. So while alcohol can affect everybody, irrespective of your age, there are risk groups where those who think they are invulnerable and drink more are at even greater risk than they realize. So with younger people, effectively, all the hardware isn't there, like in a computer. They're missing a slot of RAM. So making the right decision is just a lack of the actual machinery being there until you're 25 to 30. We pick 18 as the age where you're an adult and you should know better, but that was done in the past. It was arbitrary. We'll pick 18 or 21, but we know today neurologically it's actually between 25 and 30. So does that mean that people under the age of 25 have excuses for the mistakes that they made? Well, education has been informing us to be careful. People have been telling us to be careful. So it's not like we're living in a vacuum where we aren't aware that young people can do things that can result in accidents. And adults can as well. But it's just that the probabilities change. I'm going to stand up again, continue on the walk. So I think today I've covered enough about alcohol and water and oceans and the sea to help you realize that alcohol just increases the probability or the chances of something bad happening, and that bad things do happen. So it goes to show that, and we've said this already, that sobriety has some big advantages here. If you tick that box that you don't drink when you're taking out insurance, that can actually lower the cost of your insurance policy. But be warned, if you are drinking after you sign an insurance policy where you say you're not drinking and something happens, well, that can void your policy. So be aware of that, but do take advantage of it. There's some of the positive advantages to not drinking and cheaper insurance policies. That's me signing off for today. Thank you for joining me on this walk and talk.